My name is CaseyMuhammadAnwarHaq, and this presentation is for Final Project of CSCI-E185 Big Data Analytics of Harvard Extension School. The topic of presentation is Chukwa, a large-scale mechanism to collect and store data in HDFS. In order to understand well about Chukwa, we need to understand the foundations of Chukwa in relation with Hadoop, for which it was developed. Recently, we've been facing a spike in a volume and a data collection in processing of statistics and decision-making tools. Hadoop has been serving as one of the smartest and strongest framework to process large volume of data in a very little time. This is based on a clustered framework that is highly agile, scalable, reliable, economical, and structured to implement the complex data processing. Hadoop is based on two major components: HDFS, which is also known as Hadoop Distributed File System, and another one is MapReduce. Hadoop Distributed File System is a high bandwidth clustered storage, and it can be expanded to unlimited nodes. It has all the features what all other structured distributed system has, with more enhanced features. The MapReduce is a distribution of fault-tolerant resource management coupled with scalable data processing. It is a combination of programming instructions that generates a highly consolidated data or information out of a large scale of data. To understand Hadoop well, just considering this framework or this life cycle of data in Hadoop, there are raw data or logs that exist on the files that have been read by different APIs and bring it into the Hadoop cluster in the forms of data blocks which exist on data files. Those files are being read by MapReduce applications or programs, and then that MapReduce program transform those that data in a more consolidated information, which is our result. HDFS is a Hadoop distributed file system. The primary objective of HDFS is to store data in a reliable fashion. Reliable fashion means that there are a number of failures happen and they are inevitable, so it's more fault tolerant. The Hadoop distributed file system is designed to run on a commodity hardware. It can run on any standard hardware in which is compatible with Java applications. It has many similarities with existing distributed file system, as I mentioned earlier. But the differences of Hadoop distributed file system is way more than others. It is highly fault tolerant and designed to deploy on a low-cost hardware. HDFS provides a high throughput access to application data and is suitable for applications that have a large data sets. To understand the HDFS architecture, we can see that the data resides in the blocks, and those blocks are being managed by data nodes. The architecture is just like a government where there is a master who controls all the slaves. In this architecture, we have master, which is called name node, and the slave nodes are called data nodes. The data nodes maintains the data in the files which are residing in the form of blocks. Those blocks are of 64 kilobyte to 128 kilobytes normally, and those blocks are replicated across several data nodes. A single name node is just like a governor who is managing the replication of these blocks or information on different name nodes. The name node maintains the file system namespace, and change to file system namespace or its properties. An application can specify a number of replicas of file that should be maintained by HDFS. The number of copies of file is called the replication factor. These blocks are residing in the file and they are being replicated to multiple nodes for the fault tolerance. HDFS supports a traditional hierarchical file organization. A user or an application can create directories or store file inside these directories just like any other file system. Moving on to the MapReduce component. The MapReduce is a programming model for the efficient distributed computing. As you can see, we have an input that is mapped by the MapReduce process. The MapReduce library maps and groups together all intermediate values associated with the same intermediate key and passes them to the reduce function. The reduce function accepts an intermediate key and set the values for the key. It merges together these values to form a possible smaller and meaningful set of values, which is our output. By providing parallel programming model, MapReduce can control job execution in many useful ways. It performs automatic division of job into multiple tasks, automatic placement of computing near the data. It is good in load balancing and recovery from failures and strugglers, because if any one of the nodes, if any one of the map process fails, or any reduce process miss out, it can be replicated to the other reduce process based on shuffling. Now that we understand Hadoop and its component of HDFS and MapReduce, we can move on to the Chukwa. There are a number of Java-based initiatives that help to enhance the working of distributed MapReduce processing of data. Chukwa is Hadoop's sub-project that originally designed to support batch processing of logs. It was designed to sit on top of Hadoop architecture by utilizing HDFS and MapReduce principles of Hadoop. The main components of Chukwa are agents, which is responsible to get the data or collect the data and pass it on to collectors. Collectors continuously save data on HDFS files, and they receive data based on HTTP link. MapReduce function is the same function that happens under the Hadoop architecture, but in Chukwa it has been distributed into two steps. One is archiving. It basically archives the data and put them into different chunks, and from their inputs to output new sequence files of chunks and group them together. There is a new concept of demux process that parse and convert unstructured chunks to fully or semi-structured, which can be read by other application when they can go into the additional databases or HBase or MySQL. Data sinks. Basically, data sync exists after the collectors, because collectors pick up the data from agents and try to put them in data sinks. Data sinks contains the raw data unsorted, and possible there could be a duplication of data, since the collectors are getting data from multiple agents at the same time. HICC is Hadoop Infrastructure Create Center, just like a portal to view the existing data, or say Chukwa records within the database or HBase. We need to understand how Chukwa works. The whole concept of data collection is can be seen in this diagram. What happened is agents run on every machine to collect data by periodically running the Unix commands or tailing file or listing incoming UDP packets. Every packet normally have some kind of instruction that tells that the data has been received. Each particular data source corresponds to the so-called adapter, and those adapters exist in Chukwa agents. They are dynamically loadable modules that run inside the agent process. Basically, there's a general concept of adapter for each data source. There should be only one adapter, and each adapter has a unique name. If they are not given any name, then they can produce a name based on the hash algorithm or random parameters. Since data collection is been received by multiple adapters and been drive to the collector via HTTP, there is a mechanism of moving the data from multiple agents to multiple collectors, or say a collector can receive a data from multiple agents, which is highly tolerant, and in case of failures it can retain or retrieve data or recover data from other agents. Again, if I like to define adapters and collectors in our figure, adapters emit data in chunks, and every chunk is a sequence of bytes with some metadata. These are set automatically by agents and adapters. So all the metadata has been set on that specific chunk of data by adapters or agents. Collectors, rather, then they accept data and writes directly on HDFS. This data is sent across a network to a collector process, and that does the HDFS writes. Each collector receives data from up to several hundred hosts. Collector does drastically reduce the number of HDFS files generally by Chukwa. You can see that there are multiple nodes that are providing data to adapters, and the agents are sending. There are 4 agents and 8 adapters, and similarly 8 data sources, but they are sending data to 2 collectors, which are then going to write on a single sync file, and that reduces a lot of processing for Hadoop to read through its MapReduce application and produce a useful result. Chukwa lifecycle of data. As you can see, and as we discussed before, that the agents support dynamically starting and stopping adapters, and which are responsible to send the actual collection of data, and they post data to collectors via HTTP, and it normally is a net-based protocol. Collectors are also responsible for HDFS writes. It receives data from multiple hosts and write all of the data to sync files, as I mentioned earlier, which is again a Hadoop sequence file of serialized chunks. This process happens periodically, and the sync file keeps renaming based on a different period of time, as we define in the environment of Chukwa. And as the period of as the defined period reaches, the sync file closes up the file and send it out to write on HDFS file and opens a new file. In this process, the data is readily available for MapReduce program to read. And once the MapReduce program read the data from the files and um, produce a result, that is done based on two processes. As I mentioned earlier, there's an archiving and the demux job. Archiving basically produce an ordered list of data and a group data, and demux basically parse it and put it in the order and sort it, and that has been read by the applications or any other end tools or portals that are normally being used to view that data. In this scenario, HICC is another component that comes with Chukwa Chukwa application, which is Hadoop Infrastructure Care Center, which is a portal-based application or interface to display the existing data within the database. This is another view of backend workflow of how Chukwa works, and there's a very limited information available over the net or over the books, but I try to consolidate all the required information to understand how Chukwa works with HDFS and what is the difference between Hadoop framework and Chukwa framework. So I hope that gives us enough knowledge to understand the required project description. Thank you very much.